Hey lads, welcome to another video. This time I'm going to be talking for my first impressions in the 10.07 Restoration Shamans, and I can tell you a couple of things right off the start. First, it feels amazing. All the changes, everything that happened is pretty great. It's a pretty great spot, but it also, at some points, especially in raid, feels like an entirely different class, right? Some of the skills are gone, other skills you're going to be using much more, etc. So let me go through the talents that I'm using right now. Of course, don't take everything I say for granted. Obviously, I'm not the best shaman in the world, but what I have over here works for me. And even if it doesn't work like this for you, with few changes, you can probably make it more suitable to your play style. So this build that you see right now on the screen, you can find in the description of the video below, is for M+. And somebody requested to go through all the talents one by one and explain why I'm taking it, so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to talk about some of the talents that I didn't take as well, which, of course, is important for your own builds. So, Riptide we're not discussing. Healing Wave is a talent, basically, that you don't actually need, right? So, if you look into my M+ stats, I probably cast Healing Wave not more than twice, right? I also do not take Primordial Wave. I'll talk about this in just a second. So there's not much value that I get from the Healing Wave, but first you need that talent to get to Resurgence, and second, as I'm going to tell you in just a little bit, with this build, you can get into mana trouble quite often. So in those situations, you actually want to cast Healing Wave, because Healing Surge is much more mana cost heavy on your spells that you cast. So basically, having this is a good addition for either when you're out of mana or when you know that you'll be in mana trouble, so you can basically cast that instead. So Healing Stream we're not discussing. We all know that spell. Tidal Waves basically is a buff that you get every time you cast a Riptide for either your Chain Heal or Healing Surges. Usually you want to pair that with the Healing Surges. Then you have the Water Totem Master, which just reduces the cooldown of your totems. And then you want Cloudburst, right? So Cloudburst is pretty powerful. Very useful, especially in high keys, because sometimes you just need a burst of healing, and that could be your saving grace. Master of the Elements is actually something that you can use both for damage and healing. So every time you cast Lava Burst, your next spell is 20% more powerful, as long as it's Nature of Frost. So you can either use that in your Chain Lightnings, or you can use it for, let's say, your next healing spell. This is pretty good paired with the Lava Surge, which basically gives you a chance to get instant Lava Burst proc and cast it to your target, which means that you get an instant proc, you cast it, and then your next spell is 20% more powerful. And since we're here, of course, we want the Echo of the Elements, which gives you additional charges from both Riptide and Lava Burst, which enhances both your healing and damage. Alright, going back here on the left-hand side, the Stormkeeper is something that you can invest somewhere else. So this is only a damage talent, right? You don't get much healing out of it, although you can actually pair it with Ancestral Guidance. So if you pop Ancestral Guidance and Stormkeeper, then you're actually going to be doing a lot of healing by just doing DPS. But if you don't like to DPS, you can invest that point somewhere else and get more healing out of it. The Healing Rain you need because you can pair it with Acid Rain. So the Healing Rain is not going to do much healing in your dungeons, but it will first significantly give you a damage boost if you're running Acid Rain, because you're going to be casting this on your group. The groups right now are melee heavy, so you'll be hitting more than one person. And then the talent that I didn't mention, called Deluge, is actually pretty good, because your Healing Surge and Chain Heals are going to heal for 20% more if your targets are standing on your Healing Rain, or of course you have a Riptide on them, right? So basically what you want to do is you want to keep your Healing Rain on your melee at all times, which is going to be a little healing increase. It is going to give you some damage, because the mobs are on the melee as well. But then when you cast your Chain Heals, which is one of your main spells now, you will be healing for 20% more, which is huge, right? Ancestral Vigor is good to have because every time you heal, you're basically giving 10% more health to your targets, so that's more survivability, especially in high keys if you're going to get hit a lot. Spirit Link, we're not discussing, huge boost, a huge CD that can basically save your group for wipes. Healing Tide Totem is actually not that bad in M+ as well, because it is doing increased healing right now, so it's a small CD to have, good to help you top people off. And then here we are using Flow of the Tide. So Flow of the Tide basically even more enhances your chain heals. They heal for 30% more as long as you cast them on a target with a Riptide, but it also consumes the Riptide, right? So this is actually huge because let's say your target is having the Riptide, and then you have a High Tide proc, right? So your chain heal is going to be insanely big, and it's going to top your group off, which is also going to be a very fast cast because of the Tidebringer, which I'm going to get to in just a second. In M+, you are spamming a lot of healing surges, so Undulation is great. Every third healing surge is going to be 50% more effective, which is huge. And this is also pretty nice paired with this talent, Ancestral Awakening, which basically, when you crit with your healing surges, which is basically almost guaranteed because you're running high crit, and then you have the Tidal Waves talent, so you basically heal somebody else for 30% of that amount. As you're going to see a little bit later on in the stats, you are actually going to get a lot of healing from Ancestral Awakening in M+, not necessarily so in rate, but this is great to have in M+. And then this is the new stuff, the new toy that we have, which is called Tidebringer. Your chain heal cast time is reduced by 50% every 8 seconds, and you get 2 charges of that. So that means that your chain heal is basically going to be a 1.1 second cast. Right now I have 2 stacks of this, right? I have 2 stacks of Tidebringer, so you're basically getting a 1 second chain heal. This is insanely fast, right? So you can spam 2 chain heals in the matter of 2 seconds, and depending on not if they're buffed, you can basically get a lot of value out of them. And for that, we're also running High Tide, which every 100,000 mana you spend buffs your next chain heal to be first 10% more effective, and then the healing is not reduced with every jump. So this is actually huge, because right now you can just spam chain heals. Every 8 seconds you're going to get more empowered, faster chain heals. And keep in mind that if you have 2 stacks, right, it's going to take you about 2.5 seconds to cast the chain heals. Let's say you also cast your Healing Rain, or you spread a few Riptides and then you press your Cloudburst or something like that. So basically your next Tidebringer charge is going to be almost up by the time you need it, right? So this is insanely fast, insanely quick, and insanely helpful in situations where you need to do a lot of healing. Let's say Herja or Ranging Tempest, right? So those would be very, very useful in those situations. Now, one thing to point out is, if you're casting the chain heal so fast, sometimes you actually want to stagger them, right? Because if you cast one chain heal, especially if you have High Tide, you're going to top everybody in your party because they jump to additional target because of the Flow of the Tide's talent. So sometimes you want to actually wait a little bit before you cast the next one, because if you're too quick, you're just overhealing, you're wasting your mana, and you're wasting your Tidebringer charge. So let me talk very quickly about the Mana Tide Totem and this Spirit Walker's Tidal Totem, which further increases the cast time of your chain heals, right? This is actually very good, but it does feel a little bit like an overkill, because if you cast this, and especially if you have a Tidebringer proc as well, your cast time of the chain heal is going to be so fast. Let's say it's going to be like 0.5 seconds or something like that. So by the time you're done casting, you're still inside of your GCD, so you're not allowed to cast anything else, right? That's why it feels a little bit like an overkill. It's a great talent, don't get me wrong, but it at some point just feels like too much, right? I did run this in a raid. It's a very nice CD to have, but I don't think that's needed in M+, although you could use the Mana Tide, right? It would be nice to have more mana, but at some point, just keep in mind that it feels very, very very much like an overkill. And then we get to the Earthen Harmony, which increases the healing of your Earth Shield, and it also gives 6% damage reduction. This is huge because you're basically making it so your tank takes 6% less damage. this is insanely good, right? This is very, very good. And if you're running the Elemental Orbit talent, then you can cast the Earth Shield on yourself as well, and you're getting 6% DR as well. So this is insanely good. You definitely want to run this. It is... Many times we have said that shamans do not have externals apart from the Spirit Link Totem. So this is kind of like your external right now, and it's permanent, right? As long as you keep the Earth Shields up, this is insanely good. And then Downpour is something that I like a lot for M+, because there's many situations where a group is stacked, so you can just cast this. It's a very quick cast, less than a little bit over a second, right? And if you hit everybody, it's a big heal for some tough boss situations. So a few of the other talents to mention. As you know, I don't like Primordial Wave. It's actually a good talent to have because it's a small CD. It's actually mana effective because you're spreading Riptides, which is hugely, like, it's the best spell in the game, right? It's very mana effective. It's a good heal, and then you're casting the Healing Wave, which is your other mana efficient spell. However, I kind of don't like it because you have to spread the Riptides to get much value out of the Healing Wave, and then at the same time you are consuming the Riptides with Flow of the Tides. So this is just something that I personally don't like, but don't get me wrong, it's a great healing CD, and it, if used correctly, obviously, you can also save a lot of mana out of it. I stopped running Earth Living here. You can just get one of the runes for that purpose. The Howling rune is haste. I'm not sure what the name of the crit rune is. Actually, let's check that very quickly. So Buzzing Rune is the crit rune, so this is what I use in M+, right? But this is not a bad spell to have, so it is something that you can take if you like. The Riptide talents are actually not bad, but in M+, as you can see, Chain Heal is king there, so this is what you're going to be casting, and I think that covers that part of the tree. Over here, I'm just going to mention some of the more important talents in the street. So obviously you need Earth Shield, so you have the synergy with the Earth and Harmony. I already mentioned that Elemental Orbit is a must. The other talent that's actually pretty good is the Surging Shields. So the Surging Shields further increases the healing by your Earth Shield, and the rest is not important. You're not using Lightning Shield, and then sometimes you actually get hit, and you trigger your Water Shield, which is base now, right? So you can get more mana out of this, but the main thing is to increase the healing from the Earth Shield, and as you're going to see in the stats a little bit later, Earth Shield actually does a lot of healing right now. I don't know if I mentioned the Resurgent talents, but it's easy to grab, right? It's up here in the tree, and every time you crit, you basically get some mana back, and Spinning Chain Heals drains your mana pretty quickly, so this is a good thing to have. Then over here we want to get to Nature Swiftness. We don't like those talents that much, right? So it's 1 point to invest into Mana Spring, which is even more mana every time you cast Lava Burst or Riptide, so that's pretty good. And Ancestral Guidance and Nature Swiftness are two talents that are basically must. Small healing CDs that you can pop at all times, so definitely make sure to have those two. They're a must. Many people mention that Swirling Currents currently is bugged and it doesn't work. If that's the case, you can get those 2 points away and put them somewhere else. But having 20% more healing to your Cloudburst is actually huge. So let's hope that even if it's bugged, they will fix it. Two talents to mention here on this side. So Brimming with Life gives you more health or faster reincarnation, which is great. And then you get 4% more crit chance. So those are must-have, and as you can see, I opted not to use Winds of Alakir and Gust of Wind, or Spirit Walk. Those are great, but those are 3 points that you have to invest here. One for Gust of Wind, 2 for Winds of Alakir. So it just feels that you can play without them. I play without them for 2 days now. I do miss them. They're great talents, but 3 points is just a little bit too much, right? You can invest those points somewhere else, and as you can see here, I'm running Nature's Guardian, which is a nice heal. More totemic focus, so increased radius, reduced duration, increased duration, right? And then you get the reduced cooldown of your totems. So I feel like investing the 3 points here is much better. And then the rest is pretty much self-explanatory. Some defensives here, definitely need the Interrupt, definitely the Cap Totem, and then the Earth Elemental is pretty nice to have as well. And you can actually wheel, so you can get rid of the Earth Elemental. You can get rid of the curse spell, right? The curse you only need, I think, in Temple of the Jade Serpent, and probably nowhere else, right? So you can actually invest into, let's say, Earth and Harmony, and in some dungeons you actually need, let's say, Purge, right? So you can get that, or you can get Purge and Hex, depending on what you need. Frost Shock for explosive weeks. So there is some wiggle room here if you need to do so, right? You can get rid of some of those points and put them somewhere else. And yeah, Earth Grab now replaces Earthbind, so it's not that great. I actually prefer the Earthbind here. So this is the build that I'm running with the short explanation. Let me very quickly go into the raid build that I've run, for those of you who are interested in that. In the raid, obviously, what we're trying to get to here, we don't need the Cap Totem and the Earth Elemental. Definitely, we don't. So the Interrupt and the Purge are something that you might need, right? So in those fights, I just get a point away from Elemental Warding and get those points there if I need to have them. And here, you actually want to get the Totemic Recall and the Call of the Elements. This is because in raid, you actually want to run Earthen Wall Totem. Earthen Wall Totem is great there because it basically is a free 350,000 healing that you can do to your party, and you can reset the cooldown of that totem with the Totemic Recall and then cast it again, stack two on top of each other, etc. Right? So this is great to have in raid. In raid, you can actually run Acid Rain, but definitely have the Overflowing Shores, which basically gives you an instant heal once you cast your Healing Rain. And there, I also run the Earth Living weapon because it's actually a good addition to your toolkit. Now, in raid, obviously, we don't want Master of the Elements, we don't want Stormkeeper, we don't want the Healing Surge. I don't run Ancestral Vigor there as well, it's not crucial. And because in raid, you are not actually casting Healing Surges, you don't want to take Ancestral Awakening as well, because the only chance for that to proc is from your Riptides, which is going to be significantly less than what you get in M+. Now, the other change here is Unleash Wife, which is great, right? For different reasons, you can pair it with every spell. Chain Heal is the main thing, right? But you can also try to stack it with Healing Rain, which basically makes your Healing Rain heal to additional targets. So that's a great spell, and since we're not casting Healing Surgeons, the Undulation is basically not good to have in raid either. Now, I'm still running High Tide here, so there's a Primal Tide core that you can run, but I kind of like the Chain Heal is so powerful right now that basically you just want to buff that, right? So that's why I'm opting for the High Tide. I still run the Tidebringer, and I just said, in raid, you actually want to have the Mana Tide, and that talent here is also great, but as I mentioned earlier, it kind of feels like an overkill. Primordial Wave, actually not that bad because you're spreading the Riptides in raid, and it's extra healing from your Healing Wave, so that's great to have. You still want that, that's insanely good. Again, it's DR and it's healing for you and the tank both, or whoever you cast it on. Downpour is not required in raid, but it's a good CD to have. And then the main thing here is whether or not to run the Flow of the Tides. Now, Flow of the Tides is the better talent of the two. Ancestral Reach just flat increases your chain heal value by 8%. Still bounces additional time, right? But the Flow of the Tides is only beneficial if you're casting it on a person with a Riptide. If you're not casting it on somebody who has a Riptide, you're basically wasting that talent because you get no value out of it, right? Yeah, chain heal still bounces an additional time, which is great. But if you're not getting that 30% increased healing, that's a wasted point. And I kind of noticed that I'm not paying that much attention in raid if the target that I'm casting the Chain Heal on has a Riptide. If you can get better and cast on targets with your Riptide, then definitely run that. But I just opted for this, which gives me 8% more healing flat, right? No matter who I cast the Chain Heal add. So and I guess the TLDR here is until the point I get better, right, with the Flow of Tides, I am just running Ancestral Reach in raid. But as I mentioned, this is still a great talent. And then there are a few points that you can wiggle with here. So you can get rid of the Mana Tide points as well. You can get rid of Torrent as well. And the one talent that probably worth mentioning here is Wellspring, right? So Wellspring, in order to get Wellspring, that's actually quite expensive. So you can get Undercurrent here, and that basically increases your healing. The more Riptides you have out, the more value you get. Or you can get the improved Earth Living, which is actually buffed in this patch. So it doesn't matter which one you opt for here. Let's say we go for this. And then you need an extra point here, which you cannot take from up here. So basically you need to get rid of Downpour and take the Wellspring. I haven't tested the Wellspring yet, to be honest, but because it was nerfed, and because Chain Heal is so powerful right now, it kind of feels, so you can do something like this as well, it kind of feels that you don't need that spell, right? I have the Downpour, which is basically not equivalent, right? But it is a button that you can press, and it's much cheaper to get because you don't need to spend those 2 extra points here. I've also seen people run without the Echo of the Elements, but, you know, I actually like the second charge for Riptide as well. So this is pretty much what I have for rate right now. And let me just show you some stats for the end of this video for some of the runs that I have done so far. So on the left hand side here, you see 2 M+ details outputs. So as you can see, Chain Heal is by far the best spell, right? So you're just spamming Chain Heals, and because of the Surging Shields talents, you can see that Earth Shield in this Ruby Life Post 22, those reviews you can watch on my channel, is actually the second best spell, right? Even before the Riptides. So for that reason, Tidebringer is king, and Earth Shield is also pretty good, because this is not only healing, right? This is also DR to you and the tank. So this is basically what you're spamming, and then for the spot healing, you're using Healing Surge and Cloudburst pair with those. As you can see, the Ancestral Awakening here is doing about 3 million healing, which is not bad at all. So great talent to have for M+ as well. Now, if you look into the right-hand side, this is from our recent Mythic Terror skill. The left-hand side is actually me, and this is another Shaman here on the right. Now, I am running, in this specific build, I didn't run High Tide, I actually run that Primordial Tidal Wave Core, which spreads more Riptides, right? And as you can see, my Riptides did a little bit more healing, but my Chain Heals are much less than what they would have been with the High Tide talent. So here I'm actually running Flow of the Tides, which means that I probably didn't play that good with my Chain Heals, because I wasn't hitting targets with my Riptides, and I also didn't have High Tide. So as you can see, that other person actually did much more healing with their Chain Heals compared to myself, which is why I advise you to change your build, and I did change my build, and my Chain Heals are healing for even more now. The other thing that I mentioned, Earthen Wall Totem is huge in rate. As you can see, it's my fourth most useful spell here, and Earth Shield is huge as well because it's Surging Shield, keeping that on myself as well. Other than that, the rest, I guess, it's pretty straightforward. Keep your healing rain, and also make sure that you're hitting targets in your healing rain with the Chain Heals. Alright, so a little bit longer video. I apologize for all the stuff that I said already, but hopefully that is useful to you, and hopefully you are enjoying Shaman in that new patch as much as I am. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos on the channel. Good luck in your keys and in your raid.